Okay. Hi, my name is Ariana, and I'm the health coach for Integrative Family Medicine of Asheville. Today, we are so lucky to have Danny Dreyer, co-founder of Chi Running and Chi Walking, join us for a presentation and kind of interview conversation about how can folks keep exercising during the winter and during a pandemic. Dual challenges. And so just as a brief introduction, I want to say that Danny Dreyer and his wife, Catherine, co-founded Chi Running and Chi Walking. They've co-authored 3 books, Chi Running, Chi Walking, and Chi Marathon. And they have been teaching runners and walkers how to exercise and how to bring mindfulness into running and walking for decades now. For Danny in particular, he comes to this conversation with 45 years of running experience, 43 ultra marathons, a wide range of experience in terms of 5Ks, 100-mile races, and years and years of coaching and teaching and lecturing runners and walkers about how they can move with mindfulness and in so doing avoid injury. And so again, we just want to say thank you so much to Mr. Dreyer for joining this conversation, for taking the time out of your day to help us learn more about how we can mindfully be moving and not lose kind of motivation to do so right now.
Right. Thanks a lot, Ariana. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to go through a bunch of. I'm mostly a running and walking coach and teacher, but I also will give you plenty of tips on how to be mindful about approaching your fitness throughout the winter. So hopefully this will be a lot of information. It's on a PowerPoint. Feel free to, they're going to record this, so you'll be able to go back and look at all my little points, and there's lists of things and stuff. So you'll have plenty of access to this information after this webinar. So just hang in there, and I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, great. All right, so how to exercise in the winter during a pandemic after an election. I know you're gonna. Okay, so I grew up in Colorado, so I got really used to learning how to handle cold weather. And then I moved to Asheville. I've been here 15 years, and it's not very different. It's the same, but the main thing you want to do in the winter is get outside. That's my winter catchphrase. So there's some themes of winter fitness in a pandemic, and of course, wear a mask. And one thing I would say is that when you're doing exercise that's on the medium or upper level aerobic training and you're outdoors, I would say don't wear a mask. It really restricts your breathing. It can really affect your performance and how well you move around. As long as you're a distance away from people and stuff like that, or turn your head if you pass somebody on the trail or something like that, be smart about it. But you don't really, I don't think it's really good to wear a mask when you're out moving around in a forest or, somewhere where there is nobody else, so, but do wear a mask if you're indoors, if you're working on a treadmill and there are other people around. Anytime you're indoors, wear a mask if you're doing fitness stuff indoors. I don't know what the scene is going to be with gyms opening up this year, but when they start loosening the restrictions, it's still going to be pretty important to still play it safe and wear a mask. Always socially distance. I have a running group I run with every Sunday. There's about 8 of us, and we are spread way out over the trail. So, we don't really run next to each other or really close to each other. So even though we are out in the woods, we socially distance ourselves. We don't wear masks, but we do keep good distance with people. But then there's other parts of having a winter training program, and the biggest one I would say is maintaining consistency, and that means that it's important. I was a life coach for a while, and I know that it's easier to maintain consistency if you set up your workout schedule like it's an appointment, like it's somebody you've got a really important call for, and so set up your calendar ahead of time. Know how many days of the week you want to exercise. Don't just leave it to chance, or it won't happen, generally speaking. So decide ahead of time how many days a week you want to exercise. And if it's every day, that's a big chunk to bite off, but be realistic. So when you first ask yourself, how many days can I exercise? Then ask yourself, how many days can I realistically, how many days could I guarantee that it will happen? Period. Um, and then if that's different number, then settle on whatever number it is. And then pick those 3 days, put them in your calendar. If it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, put them in your calendar and then ask yourself, well, what's the best time of day will guarantee that I get it in? If I don't get my exercise in the morning, forget about it. It's not going to happen the rest of the day. So find a way that you can actually get to that exercise, what time it's going to happen. Like I said, just make an appointment and make it happen. And you're much more likely to get it to happen. And if you exercise with a friend, that's a really good way to guarantee that it's going to happen, is because you're held responsible to meet somebody where you're going to meet them to do your workout. And you don't always have to walk or run. You can meet somebody for a strength training routine or anything like that. So, but do maintain consistency. And that's the best way to go about it, is to decide ahead of time. There's the mindful component. I want to exercise. How often, what time of day, and when you start off, it's really just sensing your body. How much can I do? How much do I want to do? How much can I fit in given my day? Okay, so leave those things open for adjustment. Okay, and don't take on too much at the start. We'll get into all of this. Okay, when you are in the wintertime, be sure to hydrate often. Just because it's not hot outside doesn't mean you're not sweating or losing body moisture. So be sure that you drink a lot during the day. Okay, and then again, another important part about winter fitness is dressing appropriately. And that means not underdressing and not overdressing. So a lot of times in the winter, that means layering. It means taking a combination of clothes and being able to shed them or tie them around your waist or whatever it is you do. And then the last part about winter exercise, especially during a pandemic, but I mean, whether there was a pandemic here or not, I would still be doing things to boost my immune system, because in the wintertime, your body temperature changes, high and low, indoors, outdoors, and it can really rattle your immune system. So you want to be doing things that boost your immune system, especially during a pandemic. If you would do it in the winter anyway, I would highly recommend it, but during a pandemic, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot if you didn't. I'll put it that way. Okay, so here's some tips on maintaining consistency. So here's what it helps. My business is chi running and chi walking, and so the chi is related to chi energy. Like I've been doing Tai Chi for 20 years now, and the chi part of it is your life force energy. That's what chi is, and it's not measurable, but it's there. When it's not there, guess what? If it's less there, you're tired. If it's really not there, you're gone. So keep your chi flowing, your energy moving, and keep your immune system strong. Keep your heart and lungs happy. You gotta. Those are the two things you really have to pay attention to, especially during a pandemic, and especially during the winter when everybody tends to take a little time off. Stay fit. So you can stay consistent. If you're consistent, you can stay fit without taking a total break. If you take a total break from fitness, it's really hard to get started back up again. But if you maintain consistency, I use the image of a soccer player kicking a ball, right? So you watch somebody who can just dribble the ball across the field. Just tapping it, tapping it, tapping it. It keeps rolling. Okay. But if you've ever gone across the field with a soccer ball and let it come to rest between kicks, it takes a lot more energy to kick that ball and get it going again. Okay, so it's the same thing with an exercise program. You always want to be tapping it, keeping it moving forward, tapping it just a little. It doesn't have to be huge. Doesn't have to be a huge amount. You don't have to be like, some of these CrossFit monsters that just really look down on people that don't do 7 days a week for 6 hours busting their ass. So you don't have to be that way, and just be regular and consistent and listen to your body. And it's a really good way to manage winter weight gain because, in the winter, especially during a pandemic, when you're not moving around a lot, um, you're generally speaking, taking in more calories than you're burning off. And it's just math. That's the math. You take in more calories in a day than you burn off. Those calories remain in your body and they turn into body fat, and then you carry it around till the next day. And if you do the same thing the next day, even if it's only an ounce, that adds up. And so it's really important that you watch your nutrition during the pandemic. I know it's everybody is uptight around it and stuff like that. And if you're held indoors, there's a chance to be munching all day and maybe eating more calories than your body really requires to exist for a day. And so really pay attention to your calorie intake. And I would say especially carbohydrates. They tend to turn to fat pretty fast. And if you can stick low on carbs and a little higher on the proteins, okay, and it'll just help not turn so many carbs into body fat.
Excuse
Okay.
me, Mr. Dreyer, before we
Yeah,
move on, is it okay to ask two questions about kind of where we're in this
you can
conversation?
ask any
Yeah.
question.
First, what are two specific ways that you recommend folks keep their chi flowing? If, someone's not familiar with Tai Chi or with the
Oh,
concept of chi,
yeah. Keep your chi flowing. There's a couple of ways. One way is moving.
right? Walking,
any
running.
any body movement
Yeah.
helps energy move through your body.
Okay.
Uh, uh, the thing about chi is that it's in your body, but it can be blocked
Mm.
or reduced, and that comes from tension held in your body. One way that you can keep energy from moving through your body is holding tension, because where you hold tension or a tight muscle or something like that, the energy gets backed up there. That's why it turns sore. If you talk to anybody who studies Chinese medicine, they'll say that pain is a blockage of chi,
Hmm.
straight
Okay.
across.
All right.
So if you're feeling sore or uptight or tense or anything, listen for the places in your body. Like, really watch places in your body where you hold tension. That's the place to work. It's not so much you got to go around doing stuff to build energy, but what is really important is to do stuff that keeps energy from being blocked.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not blocked, it'll move. And if it moves, then you'll move. And if it's moving, it's much easier to even allow it to move more freely through you, in and out of you,
Yeah.
But held tension is really, it's the new smoking.
So it's kind of brings the mindfulness in a different route as well.
Yeah.
When we're talking about chi and being aware of where in your body you hold tension, and then really thinking about, is it the shoulders, what hurts or what feels really tight, where is the stress, and then moving that part of the body and doing that on a regular basis so that, like that soccer ball moving across the field, there's this continuous ability to kind of keep not let the tension or chi kind of get stifled or blocked, such that then your overall health is impacted.
Exactly.
Okay.
And some people, when they'll start to exercise, and then they'll get really sore and they'll go, oh no, man, there's no way.
Yeah.
But the best thing to do when you are sore or tight is to move.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is not move. And
Gentle
so,
movement.
gentle movement. And the other thing that's really important, especially in the wintertime or during a pandemic, if you're indoors, you're sitting in a chair a lot or sitting on a couch a lot, watching a lot of TV or whatever you're doing, is to pay attention to your posture.
Mm-hmm.
That is really, really important, because if you're not sitting right and you're slumped in your chair and your desk, or your head stuck out, or something like that, that's blocking the energy moving through your spine. And your spine is the main course that your whole nervous system flows through. So if that's not lined up like a really nice pipe where energy can flow through, and if it's crooked or kinked or twisted, it's going to be harder to maintain good energy. So when you talk about consistency, it's consistency in movement, but it's also consistency in the alignment of your body.
Holding your
That's
body in ways that prevents the blockages from kind of happening because you haven't kinked your muscles or your spine in such a
Yeah.
way that there can't be that alignment in place. And then also
Yeah.
when there is tension, moving that area even gently to help kind of break it up.
Yes.
Cool.
And when I'm teaching runners and walkers, the two main themes that I try to get in their heads is the two main themes of Tai Chi, which is alignment and relaxation. And you got to
Mm,
have both. You got to be aligned, but not tense aligned. You got to be relaxed, but not slumped.
yeah,
So alignment and relaxation, a good blend of those two is great.
the balance. All right. And
Balance.
then one last question
Yeah.
for folks who have their soccer ball came to a complete grinding halt with the pandemic and they there's that knowing I need to get moving, but then stepping outside the door feels really hard or not possible. Any advice from your life coaching experience or your teaching experience on how to break through a motivation block?
Yeah. If I'll give you an example of just
Okay.
somebody who needs to get moving. Okay. Okay. So you look at your watch. Okay. It may sound like, oh my God, I'm told myself I was going to go take a walk today. Okay. And what I would tell these people is set your countdown timer on your watch or look on your watch and watch the time and give yourself 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Like you can do anything in 3 minutes. It's nobody's going to die in 3 minutes if you go out the door. So you look at your watch and you get yourself out the door and you go, I'm just going to walk for 3 minutes. Not worried about it. And if you start walking, once you start walking, you'll go look at your watch and go, I'm already out here, whatever. I've also had other people I just told them, go to the end of the block and back. Like, how hard is that? Just
Mm-hmm.
go to the end of the block and back. And and they get back and they go, I'm done, you know. But if then don't push it any further than something in you really wants to go.
Yeah.
But what I would say is a lot of what I base the mindfulness around the body on is body sensing. That's what I call it, body sensing. Listen to your body, and your body talks to you all day. You know, if you're if
Yeah.
you're sitting in a football game on a bleacher, your butt will tell you pretty quickly that it's a hard bench, right? Because your
So
body's
true.
talking to you. You know?
Yeah.
If I'm not sitting up straight at my desk, my neck will start to ache in the back. That's my
Mm-hmm.
body talking to me. So get really used to listening to your body carefully because it's talking all the time. So so it can tell you when you need to get up and move, like your energy feels totally stagnant. You go, oh, I just got to get up or shake off or straighten my posture or step out the door for 2 minutes and back, take a breath of fresh air. Just as something to add that when you talked about creating chi to flow, that's one of the exercises is to straighten up, relax, move. Okay. And it doesn't matter how much, just do those three and that'll start you into something, that'll get it rolling.
Thank
Um,
you.
so let's see. Okay. So be adaptable. So in the wintertime, you have to be adaptable. And of course, we've all had to be adaptable during pandemic, but it's restricted how adaptable you can be, actually. It's funny. So be adaptable. So make the best with what you're given. If you are quarantined, you have to be inside of a room or a house for a long time. Come up with a good exercise plan. Come up with what you're going to be doing. And if you are stuck in a room, there are great things you can do. If you go on a computer, there are a million people leading fitness workouts. All you got to do is go online, surf YouTube. You'll have somebody standing in front of you telling you exactly what to do for anywhere from 5 minutes to 40 minutes, Um, but make the best with what you're given. If it's raining outside, make the best of it. Put on a hat so you don't get wet, but don't stop from going outside. you know. Uh, so have contingency plans. Might have a plan for a big hike, and then all of a sudden it's just dumping snow, right? Well, have a contingency plan so you don't just totally blow off that thing. You know, tone it down, take a walk, put on a raincoat, whatever it is, do something different, but do something. If you've reserved that time, keep it holy, keep it like, what, nothing breaks this. And so those are two good ones. And then just because it's cold or rainy outside doesn't mean you can't go outside. So I never use going what's going on outside as an excuse to not go outside, you know. And I know it's really hard. I mean, this morning I went out this morning, walked around Beaver Lake. I was the only person walking around Beaver Lake, and it was just light drizzles, about 36 degrees. It felt a lot like London in April. And it was cold, but and I was the only one out there. And it was actually a really nice day. I could watch the geese, and I mean, so it doesn't. It's up here that keeps you from going outside. It's not what's outside, ever. You know. Okay. Um, so anyway, those I just wanted to get some tips on being adaptable. And then if you can't go outside, there's optional fitness workouts. Okay, so I've got some listed here, but you know, you can always do core strength, balance, dynamic stretching. Any of those you can look up online, and there's YouTube that'll show you exactly how to do it. Okay, and you can set how much time according to what your schedule says you allowed, right? So um, stationary bike. You don't have to, if you own a bike, I mean, I bought one of these little tiny things that it's so small it packs away. It cost me like 20 bucks. And I can lock my bike on it and go, you know, do a bike workout. You don't have to have a Peloton to have an indoor bike, right? And you can always do yoga. Again, YouTube is an incredible resource. Okay, yoga, Pilates. If you have a Pilates studio and the practitioner is open, it's a really good indoor exercise. It's really good for strength training. And or if you have a private fitness coach, you can do virtual coaching with them. And that's what I do with a lot of my clients now, because I can't run with somebody necessarily. So I do it online, and they just set it up in their living room with a little space around, and I talk them through a series of exercises. But a lot of fitness coaches will do that. So you can, and you can usually always locate a fitness coach. You can, you know, call up any one of the gyms around and ask a recommendation for a coach that does a specific thing. If you want to be mindful about how you work out, know what it is you're looking for. Okay, and then there's treadmill workouts if you have a treadmill, or if there's a gym open that limits the number of people that are indoors. But if you do have a treadmill, there are you can walk on a treadmill, but if you want to have fitness on a treadmill, it's a little bit different. You have to, you know, do intervals where you speed it up a little bit and slow it down, or ramp up the steepness. So you have to work a little harder and then you ramp it down. So there are all kinds of treadmill workouts. There, you can go online, and YouTube is great. There's some guy I saw on YouTube that was on a treadmill doing dance moves. He was spinning around and doing stuff while the treadmill was going. He was like, I'm amazed he didn't get shot out into the wall or something. But there's a lot of creative things you can do on the treadmill. So pool running or lap swimming. If there's, I belong to a pool that only allows 4 people in the pool at a time. So 1 person per lap, and that's it. There's nobody else in the whole pool building, and you reserve it. So if you can find a pool that does that, it's great. If you happen to already have access to a swimming pool, it's really awesome. And then there's HIIT workouts, and HIIT stands, for those of you who don't know, it's a high intensity interval training. Okay, they call them HIIT workouts. That's where you just really kind of go berserk for like, 5 minutes, and it gets your heart rate up really good, burns a bunch of calories and stuff like that. And I would suggest, if you're interested in HIIT workouts, you can also look that up. But be careful what level you take it on. Like, make sure you listen to your body when it's really tired, or if it starts to hurt for any reason. Done. You stop what you're doing, whatever exercise you're doing. You don't want to hurt yourself when. So if you're listening to your body and you feel any kind of soreness or pain or uncomfortableness come up, tone it down. And then as your body gets used to having more exercise in the system, it'll get used to being able to handle more. And then you can turn up the dial, have it more intense, or have it longer, or have more intervals. There's all kinds of ways you can crank up the intensity, but don't start off with intensity. Start off with brains, start off being smart about how you approach it. And there's a Bosu ball. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. It's kind of a half-shaped ball, and it's inflatable. It's like one of the Swiss balls, but it's a half of one. And there's a lot of balance exercises you can do on them, and they're great. They're really good. Um, here's a just a bunch of just there's planks and bridges, and you can do all kinds of variations on this. You can lift and lower your pelvis. You can straighten your leg or bring your knee back, or rotate your pelvis while you're in this position, switch legs. There's so many variations you can do on these basics. This one it can be like a lunge or a stretch, but this really stretches your psoas, this muscle. And that's a muscle that really gets kind of contracted if you sit at a desk a lot. So I do this a lot when I've been sitting for a while. I just get up and just put your knee up on your chair, your foot up on your chair, and then press your pelvis in towards your heel. And that stretches this whole muscle chain that goes through here, but especially your deeper psoas muscle. It's a really good one. So if you are in a chair a lot, get up and move, get up and stretch, just do body looseners. There's all kinds of those available. Stay fit and flexible. So it's really important to maintain cardio aerobic fitness during the pandemic. This picture was taken before the pandemic, as you could probably guess. So you could do some stretching and strengthening workout 3 times a week. This is what I suggest. If you do it once a week, any strengthening you do disappears as soon as you stop. You have to repeat it because that's how you build muscles, is through repetition. That's how you build stretch, is through repetition. You can't just stretch once and then expect to be that much looser the next week. If you do it 3 times a week, it starts really working on you. Stretching can be done more often than strengthening because it's more of a relaxing kind of exercise. So stretching like yoga or Pilates or just regular, there's one called dynamic stretching, which is also really good. I highly recommend you look that up. So you can do walking, running, treadmill movement, pool running, yoga, or some form of stretching, HIIT intervals, high intensity interval training. Before you do that, it is really important to stretch before a high intensity workout, because if your muscles are at the shortest length and you jump into real extreme movement, something could pull. And I suggest the same thing with strength work. Either do free weights indoors or just pure body strengthening workouts. There is a really good system that I've found recently called Original Strength. And if you're interested in that, I would look that up. It's a really cool set of exercises to help your overall body tone, your balance, and everything else. It's a really one. It's called Original Strength. And then any indoor sports, like my wife and I for Christmas bought a ping pong table, and so, hey, gets us moving around for like an hour a day. It's fun, as long as she wins, it's great. No. Okay, so here's if you do go outside, which you will, of course. Dress in layers for winter activities. Okay, always dress in layers, and sometimes it's hard to guess. You just kind of have to give it your own shot, because different people's bodies heat up at different rates, maintain heat at different rates. Some people have more body mass, so they maintain heat. Some people are thin and have a pretty low body mass index, and so they don't retain a lot of fat, so they get cold pretty quick. So adjust your body accordingly. So this allows you to easily adapt to changing internal and external temperatures. And that's important to know. So part of body sensing is being able to tell when your internal temperature is going up or cooling down, and also what's happening around you that could affect that temperature, that internal temperature. That's the mindful aspect. So be mindful of the weather. So check the weather before you go out, if you're going to be out for a long period of time. You know, if I'm going to be out for a long run on Sundays and it's going to take 3 hours, I want to know which 3 hour window I want to go into that feels like the best weather window. And so and things to watch for it when you check that weather is the outside temperature and the wind speed. That's an interesting thing. People don't consider that. Oh, I look on their cell phone and they say, oh my gosh, it's 39 degrees outside. 39 degrees with a 10-mile-an-hour wind drops it down to like 25, you know? So it's really crazy. So be very aware of, check the weather, check the wind speed. And so then don't overdress. If you overdress, then you're just schlepping around a bunch of extra clothes. You know, you want to dress for, recommended, depending on how well you hold body heat, dress for 10 degrees to 20 degrees warmer than it is when you start, okay? For me, if I go out and it's, if it's like under 40, I'll definitely dress in layers. If it's over 40, I can kind of fudge on the layers a little more because I know that my body heats up pretty quickly. So I don't worry about it, but my hands don't heat up. All those years of skiing in Colorado where I froze my fingers off. And so my hands have to be dressed differently than the rest of my body. But if my body warms up, my hands will warm up. So don't overdress and be careful not underdressing too, because you don't want to get hyperthermic. It's one of those weird things that you can't really feel it going on until it happens. And by the time it happens, you're in trouble. You need to be very careful that you don't lower your body temperature at any time when you're out working out. For that reason, avoid stopping during a workout. If you stop during a workout, don't stop for long because your body temperature is going to cool down. You've got all that moist skin. You start moving, your moist skin acts like a refrigerator and it cools you off even more. So don't stop for long. Get into dry clothing as soon as possible after you finish. That is really crucial because you might be warm when you finish, but if you keep the same clothes on 15 minutes later, you could be really chilled and you're standing around in wet clothes and chilled, and then you can get hyperthermic, and then it's dangerous. And good types of clothing to wear are light wool, long sleeve, zip neck. So here's one in the background here. This is smart wool or something like that, and it has a neck that zips up so you can regulate your temperature through your throat a lot. And it's a light wool so that it wicks moisture away, but it stays warm when it's wet. A lot of the plastic garments don't do that. The polyester doesn't necessarily hold heat when it gets wet, but wool does. And the other beautiful thing about wool is that it doesn't absorb body odor like the polyesters do. So polyesters I can't even wear them. I refuse to wear them. You wear them once and throw it in the corner and it fights with itself. And so I highly recommend. It's worth what it costs. They're kind of expensive, but get a good wool zip turtleneck. A vest here. I have a high visibility vest that I always wear either for hunting season or for cold weather, either one. And at night, cars can see me, or early in the morning, cars can see me. So a vest is a really good thing. And for runners or walkers, the back of my vest is all mesh where it just breathes because that's where the most heat in your body kind of comes out. So if you look for a vest, find one that's vented well in back. If it's not, it could get really hot too, even though it's a vest. And then tights, I wear tights in the wintertime or workout pants. And they really keep your legs a nice even temperature. A wind shirt, this is very thin, it's just one little layer, but it's enough to break the wind. And it also has a high zip collar. So I've got triple protection on my throat. I've got this high zip, I've got this high zip, and I've got this high zip. Okay. And I like having a wool hat because it wicks the moisture away. But if it's fleece lined, the wool doesn't itch on your forehead. So that's a nice combination. They do sell those. I have one that works really well. Gloves, mittens. Some people, my fingers get really cold really fast. There are only certain gloves I can wear, but but mittens always work. So if your hands get really cold, wear mittens or otherwise buy gloves. And the best gloves I've ever found have a product in them that it's one of the products a lot of glove makers use. It's called Thinsulate. It's thin, but it's an insulator. So look for gloves that are on the brand says made with Thinsulate, because those across the board have worked better for me than almost any other gloves. And you can always, what I do, because my fingers get so cold, is I pull my fingers out of the glove and make a fist. And that really keeps my fingers warm. Once they get warm, I can work them back into the fingers and run. So that's a good little trick. A buff or a mask. Now, a buff for a lot of people nowadays is doubling as a mask. Okay, so if you run into somebody on the trail and you have a buff, you just pull it up over your nose and you're good to go. If you wear a mask, if it's really cold out, it's really helpful to wear a mask because it preheats the air going into your lungs and keeps you healthier. Unfortunately, most masks will, once you breathe for 5 minutes, it's like stuck to your face like like an octopus or something, And it's so I suggest for an outdoor mask for wintertime, go to the local hardware store and pick up a particle mask. They're called a particle mask, and they're kind of dome shaped. They're molded so that they're round and they fit over. And you've seen construction workers wearing them. But those are made with a kind of fiber that holds its shape. And you can still pinch the nose and seal it tight, but it really holds the shape. And so you can breathe as much as you want and it doesn't collapse in on your face, And those work great and they're cheap. They're easier to get now than before in the pandemic, but they work well for both. I used them for years. In fact, with one of these particle masks, I could, if I'm dressed right, I can run, below 10 degrees, where normally you could damage your lungs by breathing that. But this really gives you a good volume of air to breathe in to preheat before it goes into your lungs. Okay. I would also highly suggest if you're using a mask to breathe through your nose as much as possible, because that will also help preheat the air more. It has to take a little bit longer passage before it gets down into your lungs. I mean, there's a whole number of reasons to breathe through your nose more than your mouth, but just suffice it to say it's definitely healthier for you to always breathe through your nose if you can. You can breathe out through your mouth, that's fine, but breathe in through your nose.
This is not so much a question as a reflection that it sounds like when you talk about a shift in mindset, being creative about how you can exercise inside. Just now, as you were speaking to learning your body and being
Mm-hmm.
mindful, it sounds like if folks can go from a place of thinking about exercising outside in the cold as uncomfortable and just not something they want to do and shift into, okay, what time of day would be optimal? What's going to be happening with the weather? How can I dress in layers to prepare myself? And then learn your body and how your body works when you are outside exercising in the cold. Then you can get into an experience where you can enjoy 39 degrees and misting gray skies. It just takes a little bit of learning and figuring out, what are the things that I need to feel comfortable and still have fun, maybe out walking and running when it's cold. And kind of scaling that depending on the temperature. If it's negative 10 degrees, which we don't get too often here, but if it's that cold, having that dome mask. And if it's warmer than that, but still in the 20s or 30s, learning where your BMI is and how that affects heat retention. And
Yeah.
it just sounds very empowering in terms of mindset to shift from seeing it as a problem and an uncomfortable experience to an opportunity to learn more deeply about how your body interacts with its environment and how you can work with your body to make the experience of exercising more pleasant, more fun, more doable.
Not anymore. That was very well summed up. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that um, the better you get at listening to your body and knowing all these little things that you can do and make adjustments to time of day, watching the weather, watch your body, um, the more it empowers you to have make your choice about doing what you're doing. Then you're not at the whim of the weather. You're not a victim of the weather, and nobody needs to be a
Absolutely.
victim of the weather, and a lot of people are.
Yeah,
And so then you're just not a victim of the weather. So it doesn't matter what's going outside. Good. What do I do? Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. Um,
absolutely.
but it does take a pretty holistic approach to all of your body. There's all these parts I'm listing here that are important to pay attention to.
Hmm.
And it seems like a lot at first, but once you get used to it, it's just gets routine. It's like
It's,
first time you drove a car, it was, whoa, this is way too much for me.
yeah,
And now it's like no big deal.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying. And I think, again, shifting from that place of thinking, I can't do it. Other people just can handle running in the cold. What you just described and taught us really normalizes that, for an expert like yourself who is out running and, coaching people about running, there are specific strategies you have to make that work for yourself. You're
Yeah,
paying attention to time, to weather, to wind speed. You know for yourself that your hands don't warm up, your fingers stay cold. So you're making sure you have insulate gloves. Like there are habits you have in place that empower you and
yeah,
enable you to be out there running, for 3 hours or for 20 minutes, whatever it is. And I think that's just very normalizing, I think, for folks to kind of realize, oh, it's just that I need to learn how my body does outside
yeah.
in the cold.
Yeah, so I have that Raynaud syndrome where, my
Oh,
peripheral things turn white. As soon as my core temperature
wow.
drops, my toes and my fingers go offline, you
Wow.
know. And
Yeah.
so I have to be aware of that. So even when I go out in temperatures, any temperature below 40, I buy them by the box. I buy those little toe warmers that you can open them up and they have
Yeah.
sticky back stuff. I
Yeah.
I have my socks on and I just stick them on top of my toes on my socks
Keep you
before
warm.
I put my foot in the shoe, and I'm good to go. They last for about 3 hours, and by then your feet ought to be warm enough anyway. So I have to do little things like that, but other people don't. But it's something, yeah. For me, I have to watch that stuff and what I can do to make it
Yeah.
better for myself.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So how to regulate your body temperature? So here's how you can have control over the weather. Here's how for at least the temperature. So there are three areas where you lose body heat. It's the top of your head, you lose a lot, and through your throat and through your wrists. And likewise, in the summertime, if you're running really hot, anytime you can put water on the top of your head, water around your neck, and water on your wrists, you will be cooler. So if water evaporates off those places, it cools your whole body temperature. If you're cold, you can cover those places and maintain body heat. So it's very different on the times. Just try it sometime. Go out for a run on a cold day or a walk or whatever you're doing, and put your hat in your pocket and just like walk. And you'll feel right off the bat, wow, it's a little chilly up there. And then when you put your hat on, you'll notice how much just more relaxed you are in the whole thing of just how it just caps the heat on your body, literally. And then the thing about zipping the collars, that throat is a really huge place where you could lose a lot of body heat. And so that's why you want a vest and a turtleneck with a zip, so that as you zip it, you can unzip it a little bit. When you're getting hot, you just unzip it a little bit. If you're still hot, you're going to unzip it a little more. If you want to cool off, you can zip it down even further and really let air evaporate the wetness, and you can cool yourself down. So I find that my throat is the best place to cool my temperature, and I just always usually wear a hat if it's cool out. So fleece-lined wool hat, earband, or earmuffs if that's your style. Um, Baseball cap for cool but not cold weather. So baseball hat, keeps the winter sun out of your eyes at such a low angle, you know. So if you wear a baseball hat, just be sure if you're on trails, you know, turn it around so that you don't get hit with a branch. But it's a really good way to put just a light covering on top of your head that still keeps your heat in, but it doesn't make you hot. So I like baseball hats for that sometimes. That's a transitional headgear. For your throat, high zip neck turtlenecks, wool, of course, a zip up windbreaker or vest, a balaclava, a buff, or a particle mask. So those three things. So you can go back through this list, make sure you got them in your fitness drawer. And for your wrists, long sleeves, you know, and make sure that they're expandable enough that you can push them up and cool off your hands and wrists if you need to. One place on most people's body that never gets cold is this part of your arm, from your arm to your shoulder. Just doesn't get cold, you know, very much at all. But I've noticed that it can heat up pretty quickly, so I need to slide my sleeves up after a while. Gloves with optional mittens. They make gloves sometimes with a whole back that you can flip over and make a mitten out of it, so it just covers your fingers. But things like that. Okay, so, and then here's body areas to protect: hands, feet, face, and lungs. So your hands, you know, if you have fingers are out in the real cold, fingers that get too cold, you can get, some gloves have windbreak material, nylon on the backside, so the glove, so it just breaks the wind. For your feet, wool socks or waterproof socks. Wool socks for me work the best. You can buy them in any thickness depending on how hot or how cold your feet run. Duct tape is the best invention in the world. Everybody already knows that, but here's another application of duct tape, and that is if it's transitional weather, I don't necessarily wear my toe warmers, but to keep my feet warmer from wind or cold things coming in, is I'll put my socks on, and then I'll just take a couple strips of duct tape and put them across my toes. And you know, there's no running shoes in the world that are windproof. You know, the wind comes right through the toe because they build them to exhaust heat, right? And so, but if you wear summer running shoes in the winter, your feet they're like right open to the wind. And so if you can cover your foot with duct tape, put it in the shoe, then it won't move around or come off or anything like that, but it really keeps your toes warmer. Easy little trick, you know.
I feel like that's one of the secrets that when you think about athletes who are really out there and aren't fazed by the weather, like there are these little things that
Yeah,
you can do that really make a difference
really
between.
make a difference. And it doesn't
Yeah,
cost that much. And
yeah,
athletes are generally cheap because they've already paid money for race fees and everything else. So
right. And for running shoes and so
running
on.
shoes and
Yeah,
everything
no.
else. So duct tape for those. If you do need better traction on snow or ice or anything like that, I've even gone to the point of screwing little 1/4-inch sheet metal screws into the balls of the feet on my shoes. They're only a 1/4 inch long, so they don't go into the shoe, so they don't hurt me, but they stick out of the shoe, and I can run black ice all day long. You know, never slip. Uh, and you can get water-resistant trail running shoes. So when you don't have to be a runner, but you know, if you're out on a trail hiking or something like that, get a shoe that has really good lugs on it that doesn't slip, because you know everybody knows all the clay here in North Carolina is so slick when it gets wet. So you want to have good traction on your shoes, and it helps to have water-resistant training shoes. So even though you're not a trail runner, the trail running shoes are really good for that, or hiking boots if you're hiking. For your face, particle mask, balaclava, or a buff. Another one of those little tricks is Body Glide, chapstick, or Vaseline for exposed skin. So if it's really cold out and you're worried about getting frostbite or anything, you know, dryness on your skin, you know, cover whatever's exposed with Body Glide, or I've used chapstick, works great, or Vaseline, any one of those. And
And and that's to keep your skin from getting kind of that sunburned or like chapped from the wind and the cold feeling.
yeah,
That's
and
so fascinating.
yeah, and the wind doesn't affect it as much. So So when I would go out, if it was a day like in Colorado when I was running there, you could get frostbite on your cheeks if it was really cold out.
Absolutely.
And but if I put Vaseline on there, it's great.
I
And
wish I had known that when I was running in Vermont.
another good trick, now this isn't for winter running, but another good trick for if you're summer running, and North Carolina has the world's largest crop of poison ivy. It's the predominant ground cover around here.
That and
But
kudzu.
that
Yeah.
and kudzu, but the kudzu isn't, I'm not allergic to kudzu
Yeah,
as far
no.
as I know, but I am very allergic to poison ivy. But what I do is I do the same thing. If I put Body Glide or Vaseline on the exposed part of my legs, and I can wade through poison ivy and it doesn't bother me.
That's amazing because I mean, that makes sense. It creates a barrier so that the oils are on the outer. So that is brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, it
Thank you for
works.
sharing these tricks. This is
You're
really
welcome.
cool.
That's why they pay me the big bucks,
Right.
right?
Screws in the bottom of your shoes and
Yeah.
Vaseline on your face. No, but these really are helpful tips.
Yeah.
All right.
So then when it's cold out, you do need to be aware of safety things
Yeah.
and for different reasons, different ways that you could get in trouble. So always get into dry clothing as soon as possible after your workout. Okay. And it's just not good even to jump in your car and say, oh, it's only 5 minutes till I get home. It's always a good idea to have dry clothing with you in your car if you drive to some place to work out, so that you can not get chilled on the way home. Don't forget to hydrate before and after. Uh, that's a given. If you're going on a very long hike or walk or whatever you're doing, carry a cell phone, just so you can be in touch with people. If anything happens, you stumble and sprain your ankle, anything can happen. So, and if you're going alone, either take a cell phone or file a flight plan, I call it. Tell people where you're going, and don't just take off in the middle of winter by yourself on a trail somewhere. And that to me is not smart. Uh, and again, don't stop for long in the mid workout. You don't want your body to cool off so much. It's fine to rest, but if you're moving along really fast and you're tired, slow down. you know, you don't have to come to a rest and take a nap on the side of the trail or anything like that. You just slow down, and it allows your heart rate to come back to more normal. And then when you feel comfortable again, listen to your body sensing again, then you can move back into whatever rate you were going before. So if you're going up a big hill or something like that at the top of the hill, don't just stop at the top of the hill. Yeah, just keep moving. It's easier once you get over the top. You're heading down, so just keep moving instead of really taking a rest. Stop if you get cold, wet, or tired, or turn around if you start getting, if you're going out somewhere, if you start getting cold, wet, or tired, turn around and head back. That's paying attention to your internal body temperature, being mindful of that, but also being mindful, well, it looks like it's starting to rain a little harder and I've still got a long ways to go. Really be smart about making your decisions. Wintertime is not the time to be macho about your decisions. Oh, I can do this, no. You might not be able to. And since the winter has much less daylight, be sure to run well lit and in well lit areas and have high visibility clothing. They make, I just bought a really cool little flashlight that clips on your pocket so it shines, in all kinds of ways. And it's kind of like having your own light on. But otherwise, you can wear, light on your headlamp, or a reflective vest, any kind of piping in your clothing. When you're shopping for clothing for the winter, be sure to look for stuff that has reflective stuff on it. It really makes a huge difference. Okay. And and then if you're on a road or something, make sure that you are visible. Don't assume that a car is going to see you. So you can wear light clothing, lighter colored pants or anything like that. If you are really running in the dark and you rely on a headlamp, one thing I would also suggest, especially if you're doing uneven surface or trails or anything like this, and this is another trick, is that figure out a way to wear the headlamp on your waist. instead of your head. And there's a good reason for that. Is because I don't know if you've ever noticed when you have a headlamp on and you're looking at something, everything is lit up in front of you and there's no shadows. You can't see depth. There's, you know, um, it's a weird sensation. But if you drop the light, you can see just as well. In fact, probably a little better because it's closer to the ground. It lights better, but it casts shadows. And then from up here, you can see all the shadows. You can totally see where the rocks are and the roots are, and you could jump over them and stuff like that. So it's a really good thing to remember. If keep your lamp lower, or if you have one of those hydration vests, attach your lamp to your chest or somewhere lower than your eyes, and you start casting a shadow down below you. Man, it makes a huge difference. And of course, keep socially distanced. So all of these are just really good natural safety tips, just to make sure that you're doing a good job out there. And then there's the whole nutrition, boosting immunity that way. So this is during COVID, but it's also obviously, you know, if you're working out a lot, you need to be sure to be replenishing all the minerals in your body that you expend during a workout. So warm and spicy foods improve your circulation. You know, that's capsicum and chilies and all that kind of stuff. Lower your sugar intake. If you want to be more immune to COVID-19, lower your sugar intake, period. Because any sugar in your system will reduce your immune system. It overtaxes your kidneys, makes their job harder to do. So just kind of lower your sugar intake. And I know it's hard. I'm as much of a sugar junkie as anybody. And so it's challenging for me, but like, think ahead. Pick the days you're going to have a dessert. Don't think you're going to have one every single day, or all day, or after every meal, or things like that. Just reduce it, but plan on it so it's a real treat. You know, do it that way. Be positive about it. Greens, hearty vegetables, good colors, food with colors. That's all I can say. Eat stuff that has a lot of color. uh, and all those hearty vegetables are great for vitamin C. Eat cold water fish. It's high in vitamin D and a lot of other really helpful stuff. Vitamin D has been definitely set aside and noted as a really good immune booster for COVID-19, vitamin D. And in the winter, you don't get much vitamin D because the sun doesn't shine as much and you're not outside as much. And I heard recently a friend of mine who'd done a lot of research on the vitamin D. He says it's actually really important if you can find a vitamin D supplement that has full spectrum vitamin D. So there's like 4 kinds of vitamin D or something. He says, be sure you get all 4 because it really makes a much better immune booster if you have all 4 instead of just most people take vitamin D3 or something like that. So get the full spectrum, you get much more benefit out of having that vitamin D, but it's really important during COVID. Probiotics for healthy flora in your gut. Now your gut really helps to control your immune system, you know, and if you're not digesting food well, it can't take the right nutrients out of the food like it should. So you want to make sure you're getting those probiotics in your system, you know, whether it's yogurt or just eating a probiotic supplement. We make sauerkraut, and that's a really good one. So we just keep a jar in the fridge, eat 1 spoonful a day, boom, you know, we're good. So keep that going. Zinc is another really good immune booster. Oatmeal is very high in zinc. And root vegetables that are all real high in vitamins A and C. So the root vegetables are all great. They're a little high in carbs sometimes, but just use them wisely. Don't make just your whole meal mashed potatoes or something like that, you know. And other foods for immune boosting, garlic is great. Turmeric is a really good one. That's why it's good to eat a lot of Indian food, you know, during COVID and during the winter. Vegetables, bright colored vegetables, and berries are also really good. And the berries are good for immune system. They're also a good antioxidant, a lot of the darker berries. So this is just a really rough list. With diet, people get really crazed, but these are just very general guidelines of things to eat. And if you're not used to cooking for yourself, I would highly recommend just, again, you can go online and find recipes for any one of these things, and they'll show you how to cook them. It's going to be one of the projects that I'm going to take on in the next couple of years is to write a cookbook, and the
Oh,
cookbook
fun.
will be how to not only how what it's not going to be so much focused um, on recipes. It'll have tons of recipes, but it'll be how to combine foods, which
Yeah.
foods combine better and are more nutritious together, and
Mm.
how to cook them so you don't ruin them while you're cooking them, and how to dice food. Nobody is ever taught how to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So I spent many years as a chef too. So
Oh,
I
wow.
was, so I want to be able to help people if they want to work on their diet. The best diet you can get is when you cook yourself, if you're doing it well. That's really the best, especially when you can't go to a restaurant anyway. And so you might as well get used to doing a little cooking. And cooking is really fun once you get used to it, once you
It's another
get
one of
introduced to it.
those areas where it can be very empowering to learn the
Yes.
basic techniques that you
Mhm.
need and then to understand well how to prepare the foods so they taste delicious. If I had known as a child that Brussels sprouts could be so tasty, I would have eaten them. Like these kinds of things where we can rediscover foods because if they're
I
prepared
totally
differently than we
agree.
might have been exposed to them as children, we can love them as adults.
Oh, absolutely. And so
Yeah,
many people hate that. They say, "Oh, I just hate vegetables."
yeah,
Well, you haven't had them prepared
yeah,
well. You know.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I would hate green beans if I got them just poured out of a can, you know,
I hated
which my
peaches.
mother did.
Yeah, no, my mother as well. I hated peaches because I'd only ever had the canned syrupy peaches from, our public school system until I was in my early 20s or teens maybe, and I
Oh
had
my God.
fresh peaches.
Yeah.
It's wild what a transformation can happen with that. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
exciting that you might be writing a cookbook in the next few years. We'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Liz will keep you notified.
Okay.
So no reason to stop moving just because it's winter and a pandemic. Those are just details. Okay. So it's that should never be anybody's excuse.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's my little presentation. So if you have any more questions or anything
Great.
like that, I'm
Let's
happy to
see,
shoot through any.
maybe kind of what stood out to me from your presentation in a
Okay.
big way is that over and over across the board, there's this opportunity for mindfulness
Mhm.
and for shifting from a place of kind of being a victim to the weather or a victim to circumstances, shifting from that into a place of asking the questions, how can I make this work? Listening to the body and being
Mhm.
very aware of, where is there tension in the body and how is my chi flowing? And then also, if you don't feel like getting up and getting outside, then listening to that a little bit and saying, then let's just go for 3 minutes. Just
Yeah.
open the door in 3 minutes and then come back in. And sometimes that can be a beginning of a shift into beginning to move more. If you're listening to your body, starting slow, paying attention.
Yeah.
And then mindfulness just of learning what your body needs to go outside, learning how to dress appropriately, which is huge, and how your body responds when you're outside walking or running in the cold. Which body parts stay cold?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which parts of you, warm up fastest?
When I
And
pack for a workout, I'll just excuse me.
yeah.
When I pack for a workout, I take 2 sets of clothing,
Hmm.
and I take many options with the set of clothing I'm gonna be using while I'm exercising, and then my other set is my dry set.
Yeah.
And so I always pack 2 sets, and my one set that's always has all my options. I wait till I get to where I'm going to be exercise, so I can really feel the temperature there and see if it's like. But I prepare for anything. But when I
Yeah.
get there, then I can adjust just what I need right then.
Yeah. That way you can really attenuate what how you're dressed to the exact conditions of where you will be. And again, that really struck me as oh yeah. I mean, look at what time of the day you're going to be going out, what the temperature is, what the wind is, because wind chill is very important to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And it sounds like having backups and lots of options so that you can tailor how you're dressed to the conditions in which you're running. And your emphasis on safety awareness, I think, is like obviously very important, but not something everybody speaks to directly. And I
Yeah.
think, paying attention to and being mindful in the moment while you're out exercising. If you get tired, or if you get too cold or too wet, or the weather changes,
Yeah.
not getting caught up in, a machismo, or, wanting to prove that you really can do the extra mile. This isn't the time for that. And having that
No.
awareness and that mindfulness. And so
Yeah.
just, it sounds like, mindfulness isn't just at the core of how you move your body as you teach into
Oh,
running and walking,
mindfulness is moment to moment.
but
It's really
yeah.
the whole idea of mindfulness is get to the point where you are always reading the situation of the moment. You're
Mm,
in the moment. That's mindfulness, is being in the moment. Well, being
yeah.
in the moment means being aware of what's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that it's, if you're in the moment and you're not prepared, it's too late,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so there's some mindfulness in preparation, but there's also just mindfulness of being aware of, like, whoa, I better be careful here.
Yeah. Mindfulness is being in the moment and not in your story or in your mind of, the imagining what's happening, and it sounds like to some degree, the story that it's too cold outside. What happens if you take a step back and you look at this presentation or a lot of the materials and resources out there, and you learn how to layer. You start very slow. You are very much paying attention to your body and really trying to work with yourself around how to be safe and comfortable while you're out there, uh, and then go from
Even
there.
adjusting your own story about, I don't know how to cook. I've never cooked for myself.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
another story adjustment.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be big right off the bat. You start off by making pancakes. I mean, anything.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's all these. The whole idea is to kind of get out of the story of yourself, because once you're really get mindful, you're in the moment. Your story is always changing.
yeah.
It
It can
never
be
becomes a
radically different.
story really, because you're always just adapting and being different, you
It can
know.
be radically different than you thought it would be, better than you
Oh,
anticipated. Yeah,
way better. And
yeah,
in fact, people will notice that if you really do pay attention to what you put into your body, your nutrition, you will notice a difference in the performance of your body. And people think, oh man,
absolutely.
especially the young crowd, they'll go, oh man, you know what? I can eat anything and I can still go out and go really crazy and get a good workout in. And, yeah, maybe when you're, 25 years old, but boy,
Yeah.
you start getting older and all of a sudden, things change.
Oh, absolutely. In the mid 30s, absolutely not. I mean, already, no way. In terms of sleep, in terms of food, in terms of hydration, like all of it together makes a huge difference. And
Yeah,
actually, in the cold, makes a huge difference. I've noticed that for me, my ability to like build up body heat and to
yeah,
stay warm is really impacted by how rested I am, how I've been eating,
yeah.
and how hydrated I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All those things, what you put into your body really has a huge influence on the performance of your body. So
Yeah.
that's as important as inside of what is important is just as important as what's going on outside. And the inside part is nutrition, it's alignment, and it's relaxation. If you take care of those three areas, you can pretty well promise yourself a pretty good quality of life. And the whole idea behind being mindful is to always be working at increasing your quality of life.
Mm,
Why not? What's the
yeah.
downside of that?
Yeah.
And anything you are unconscious of or let go on as a story or a pattern or whatever it is, does not help to improve your quality of life. And
Yeah.
I want to have my quality of life improved till I check out, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's a very insightful kind of place that probably we'll go ahead and wrap up soon after this, but
sure.
just to really highlight what you just said,
Yeah.
that mindfulness, alignment, and relaxation, that those three together and can really improve quality of life. And I think when we're talking about exercise, most people have, we all have our connotations to what exercise means or looks
Yeah.
like. And this kind of like tensing up Arnold Schwarzenegger or, whoever it is that you might think of when you think of somebody who is really fit. And what can it do to your story about what exercise means to you? If
Yeah.
instead of thinking, well, I have to like bundle up and go outside and be tense and walk really fast and then come back, and if instead of that, It's this, okay, how can I be in alignment? How can I be dressed appropriately? And then hold some relaxation in my body as I'm moving so that
Yeah.
it isn't an experience of tension and kind of intensity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense. And it's the whole thing about, like you just said, um, trying to relax my body while I'm moving, you know.
Yeah.
There's a flip side to that is if you do your movement mindfully also, you can also relax through your movement, you know. You can also turn it around. If you're not relaxed, you can go for a walk and treat your walk as a mindful relaxation
Yeah.
exercise of, okay, I'm just going to really soften my ankles, I'm going to drop my shoulders, I'm going to breathe fully, and so it can go either way.
I've even read some ultra marathoners talking about, kind of relaxing into the downhill or like finding the way in the midst of the movement to relax their lower body and allow just the alignment of their bones and joints to absorb the impact as gently as possible
Yeah.
as a way of kind of getting through longer distances.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
sounds like this is the intentional practice of doing that in the moment throughout the entire, outing. It's
Yeah.
really fascinating.
It's I mean, I could talk all day, but it's really
I could
good
do.
stuff. It's
Great.
it's really a fun study because
Yeah.
you get to be the experiment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how I learned all this stuff. I just try it, try this, try that.
See how it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. Truly, our gratitude and big thanks for doing this with us.